Happy Thursday. Come on in, pull up a chair. The Daily Dope is in the air. Howdy, 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 gang. Yes, I'm Jeff McAleer, back once again as your host here at The Daily Dope, presented by thegaminggang.com. Today is Thursday, February 7th, 2019. I am your host. This is episode 243 of The Daily Dope. So, welcome aboard if this is your first time joining me. Very casual show. This is a live stream. I share some tabletop gaming news normally. I am today. And then do some unboxings. Maybe I do a review. Tonight, I actually have a double dip of reviews, both for Torg Eternity from Ulisses North America. First off, I am going to review the Living Land sourcebook for Torg Eternity and follow that up with my review of the Delphi Missions for the Living Land for Torg Eternity. And of course, as I mentioned, both are from Ulisses North America. So, as I mentioned, this is a live show. Chat is available. Last night was a fun show. I did an unboxing for Mark H. Walker's Platoon Commander Deluxe, The Battle of Kursk, and had a pretty good crowd in chat. It was having a lot of fun. There were quite a few people tossing comments, asking questions, kind of even talking amongst themselves. So, do want to point out, chat is not on screen. It's one of the ways that I kind of keep some of these stranger commenters at bay, but it is something that I do pay attention to. So if you'd like to say hello, or if you have a question, or maybe there's something about the Living Land releases as I'm paging through and doing my review, maybe you have a question, you want to see something a little closer up, by all means, chime in. I will respond. So, there is some news today, not a lot of news. I know there are some folks who watch the show. They are not fans of the tabletop gaming news. That's okay. Just look at the show notes below, and that way you can skip right ahead to the review as opposed to sitting through the news. Do want to mention, if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you happen to watch some of the videos on the Gaming Gang channel and you like them, please subscribe. Be sure to ring that bell, because that will notify you not only when there's a new video up, but also when the stream goes live. And I am live Monday through Fridays, usually, knock on wood, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Okay, so without further ado, let's jump into the news, because Arc Dream Publishing is planning to release an annotated edition of a very classic Mythos-related tome, and I've got the dope. Have you found the yellow sign? I was turning to go into the dining room when my eye fell upon a book bound in serpent skin, standing in a corner on the top shelf of the last bookcase. Robert W. Chalmers, The Yellow Sign. The King in Yellow. Robert W. Chalmers' unearthly book has inspired millions of shivering readers since the death of the Gilded Age. This beautiful deluxe edition brings new potency to its stories of madness and romance. Acclaimed artist Samuel Araya, taking a guess, graces this edition of The King in Yellow with his finest work. Full-page paintings and unnerving sketches evoke the weird romance of Robert Chalmers' finest tales. Author Kenneth Haidt, good old Ken Haidt, annotates every tale with his uniquely macabre tradition, or you could say macabre. I don't know. You know what? I've always heard it two different ways, right? I always say macabre because that's how I remember E.G. Marshall always saying it on the CBS Radio Mystery Theater. Anyway, Ken's insights bring ever deeper understanding of truths that only the mad or the hopeless would seek, or Ken Haidt. Designer Simeon Cogswell and publishers Dennis Detwiller and Shane Ivey present a tome that will stand with pride on any shelf. Readers will be drawn again and again to the sign engraved in gold to the twin suns strangely setting the tattered robes, the king in yellow. Night fell and the hours dragged on, but still we murmured to each other of the king and the pallid mask, and midnight sounded from the misty spires in the fog-wrapped city. We spoke of Hastur and of Casilda, while outside the fog rolled against the blank window panes as the cloud waves roll and break on the shores of Ellie. Once again, that's from the Yellow Sign. This deluxe hardback is on the horizon. It's scheduled for a spring release. You can pre-order it right now over at ArcDream for $89.99. But do want to mention you will be able to pick up the PDF beginning tomorrow. I will have a news piece on the website. You'll be able to get it in PDF at DriveThruRPG for $24.99. Pretty sweet. This is the hardcover is a deluxe edition. It is like a faux leather finish. Do have to mention the fine folks over at ArcDream Publishing are going to send a review copy. So, of course, granted, it's not available yet, but we will get to see that up close and personal when it does come out. And I should get a chance to take a peek at the PDF later on tonight, actually. So, moving right along, it is Thursday. I cover RPGs on Thursdays. Yesterday, I had mentioned Modiphius Entertainment had a trio of new Star Trek Adventure supplements on the horizon, and today, there's a new adventure that's available in PDF. And I've got the dope from Modiphius Entertainment. Today, we're pleased to announce the release of Star Trek Adventures Trouble on Omnid 3 by Giles Pritchard, a brand new mission for our Star Trek Adventures role-playing game. Trouble on Omnid 3 is available from DriveThruRPG and as part of our ever-growing Star Trek collection. Here are the details on this brand new adventure. You're called away from a routine science mission to intervene and mediate a dispute that has erupted on Omnid 3 on the border between Federation space and the Tellurian Republic. Inhabited by the Sheen, Omnid 3 is teetering on the brink of civil conflict. While few in numbers, the Sheen possess an insular and rigidly structured society, with the ruling and military classes living in a single large space station, while the working classes live on the planet's surface. We've heard those things before in science fiction, eh? But, ivory tower? The Sheen of Omnid 3 are infected with a subtle parasite that manifests as an apparent genetic disorder, which they call the Omnid Curse, meaning that they age at a vastly accelerated rate. A vaccine found on the surface of Omnid 3 prevents this debilitating disorder from taking hold, but in the last month, however, the vaccine shipped from the surface has failed to take effect. Wonder why? With unprotected newborns suffering and recent cases of the disorder beginning to activate in adults, tensions between the upper and lower castes are at a breaking point. As the situation deteriorates even further, can you find a way to avert Sheen's civil war? Hate when Martin Sheen and Charlie Sheen and Emilio Estevez all go at it. Just kidding. Anyway, can you find a way to avert Sheen's civil war and help find a cure for the Omnid Curse? Trouble on Omnid 3, which is funny because they keep spelling Omnid one way with an E, and then in the title of the news piece, they're calling it Omnid with an I. Trouble on Omnid 3 is the latest in a series of Star Trek adventure missions, including Ends and Means, Remnants, Callback Yesterday, and The Gravity of the Crime, an ever-expanding series of challenges. Right now, you can score the PDF at DriveThruRPG. I do believe it is carrying an MSRP of $12.99. All right, so my final news piece isn't really a super news piece, but it'll save you loads of money, especially if you are a fan of old school Renaissance gaming. Yes, that's right, because DriveThruRPG is having a sale. It's their OSR Good Old Gaming Sale. And you can save right now, I believe it's up to 30% on thousands of old school Renaissance or revival, whatever you want to consider the R to be, titles over at DriveThru. You can save on Castles and Crusades, Advanced Labyrinth Lord. I know there are people out there who are like, oh no, Dungeon Crawl Classics is not OSR. I kind of put it in OSR. It's got the vibe. I look at the vibe, not the mechanics, as far as how I look at old school Renaissance. But also DCC. There is Mutant Crawl Classics is on sale. Like I said, there are thousands of core systems as well as adventures available, and that sale is going to run for the next 11 days. So I do want to point out that I always mention it when I'm talking about DriveThruRPG, and every news story today is DriveThruRPG related. The Gaming Gang and thus the Daily Dope are affiliates of the One Bookshelf shops, those stores out there, of which DriveThruRPG is one of them. So, if you are going to go to any of the DriveThru sites or say Wargame Vault, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of the banners, and that way, when you go to the DriveThru sites, if you make a purchase, you get a very small portion of that sale, but it all adds up and really, really helps out. Because normally, on a monthly basis, it will actually pay for the hosting for the website, which is not cheap. We don't have GoDaddy web hosting because we have too much traffic. Anyway, and the other thing too is because the Gaming Gang is no longer operating for profit in any way, anything left over is also going to be donated to, I'm going to bring out Lil Magic Bub for this, for Lil Bub's Big Fund at the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. Yes, that's right. Lil Magic Bub from the Lil Bub store. And I am a huge fan of helping organizations which support special needs animals. And to learn more about Lil Bub's Big Fund at the SPCA, let's join Lil Bub. I said Little Bub, it's Lil Bub, as she visits their headquarters in New York.
Hi, Bub. Nice to meet you. I'm Joey. I work at the ASPCA Adoption Center. It's nice to meet our first ever cat executive officer. Can I show you around? Let's go. So, Bub, this is our main cat area where we can have up to 300 cats at any given time. They live in these nice cat condos where they can play, jump, and be comfortable until they go home. Sorry, Bub, we don't have any dinosaurs. And this is where we keep our adoptable dogs. This is one of my favorite dogs, Duchess. She came to us through the NYPD, and we believe that she was abandoned. Bub, that's not how it works. Adopters have to come in and fill out an application. Bub, you might be better in the office.
Of course, you can't click there to learn more, but you can go to the web address that I'm sharing right now to help support Lil Bub and the ASPCA. So I do want to point out that I've had people ask about the little magic bub or little whiz bub, as I like to call this little plush toy here. And this is actually from the Lil Bub store, which if you can go to lilbub, LILBUB.com. There is a store. I do want to point out, if you're interested in learning more about a really, really amazing and resilient kitty, by all means, check it out. They are having right now, and I think it's through February 12th. There's a clearance. They're having a clearance sale on a lot of different stuff because I guess they have to change warehouses. And I am actually going to get, yes, because I already have Lil Bub's little book. What can I tell you? I'm a big dork. I'm a big softy when it comes to animals. But I was going to say, they've got a clearance sale going on. I'm going to get a Lil Bub mug. Like, I want to say it's like $6. I think it's normally like $20. So, like, there's specials on calendars that have photographs of Lil Bub and all this other stuff. So, although that is not necessarily associated with the ASPCA, it does help raise funds for, of course, Lil Bub and his dude and dudette and the kiddos, I guess, that are in the family as well. But also helps, I want to say it's Halo Pet Food, donate millions of free bowls of food to shelters around the country. So pretty cool stuff, pretty sweet. Gotta dig it a lot. So of course, my Lil Bub stuff shows up. You guys will know. You guys will find out. All right, so before I jump into my reviews tonight, I do want to point out what's on tomorrow's show as well as Monday's show. So tomorrow I will be reviewing The Thing, Infection at Outpost 31 from Mondo Ray Gun and USAopoly. So if you're a fan of John Carpenter's The Thing, definitely want to check that out. Then on Monday's show, I am going to be reviewing Master of Wills, which is from Stormcrest Games. It's pretty interesting, kind of back and forth seesaw sort of game. So I will be reviewing that on Monday. Next Tuesday, I might actually have an interview. I don't want to reveal who it will be with yet. Still trying to iron some stuff out as far as that goes. I'm honestly thinking, I love role-playing games. I mean, I love role-playing games, and I honestly don't feel that I cover them enough. At least not on the show. On the website, yes. In fact, I've got our new correspondent, Sammy, providing some reviews of various different RPG products right now, and plus some board games as well. But I don't share enough love on the show, I don't think. One day of the week is probably not enough. So what I'm thinking of doing, I might make Fridays kind of like digital Fridays, where I might take a look at and do reviews of various role-playing game products that are available digitally. So which obviously would mean I'm not going to be tackling Wizards of the Coast stuff on Fridays, but that's like a Thursday show thing because those are the physical books. So anyway, I'm kind of bouncing that around. I'm not sure yet because the PDFs, just sharing the slides and that just doesn't seem to have that same kind of oomph as when I'm actually paging through a book. So anyway, speaking of paging through books, I am going to be reviewing the Living Land sourcebook, which is from Ulisses North America for Torg Eternity. It is written by Ross Watson with artwork provided by Chris Bivens, Dennis Darmody, Talon Dunning, Jen Flores, Ross Graham's Gunship Revolution, Elida Saxon, Scott Schomburg, Schomburg? Oh, like the suburb, except it should say Chicago suburb, except it's spelled differently, as well as Steve Wood. You can get the 144-page sourcebook in hardcover for $39.99. You can grab it in PDF for $19.99 on, you guessed it, DriveThruRPG. Also, The Living Lands Delphi Missions is written by James Dawsey, Greg Gordon, Miranda Horner, Rick Jones, Steve Kenson, Bill Keys, Henry Lopez, Ron Lundeen, Aaron Pavo, sorry, Gwendolyn Reichel, and John Terra. Artwork is provided by Chris Bivens, Dennis Darmody, Talon Dunning, Ken Flores, Ross Grams, Gunship Revolution. Gosh, it's like the same people again. Elida Saxon, Scott Schomburg, and Steve Wood. The 82-page hardcover carries an MSRP of $24.99. And, of course, you can score the PDF for $12.49 at DriveThruRPG. So let's head on over to the other camera. I have got the books here. Let me put this one down here for a sec. And I am going to grab my reading specs real quickly. And I'm going to tilt this a little bit so we can get rid of some of the glare. I notice we get a little bit of glare when I just lay it straight down, so we should cut down on some of the glare this way. So, of course, let's take a look at the back. I did a page through 3 weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago. But now I am prepared to do the reviews. So, a realm of primitive adventure. The living land is ruled by High Lord Baraka and his army of reptilian Idinos. It has taken over both coasts of the United States, the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, and the mysterious White Zone in Canada. Where the living land rules, miraculous spiritual power is available, but technology rusts and fails. Ordinary humans, and even some heroes, regress and become ruled by their primal passions. There are amazing opportunities scattered among the living land's perils. The Law of Wonders ensures the lost treasures appear in the misty and unexplored jungles. These treasures might have disappeared from Earth long ago, or they may be relics from cosms destroyed by the High Lords. Whatever their different origins, they are resurfacing here and now for adventurers bold enough to discover them. Inside, we're going to find new perks, miracles, and gear for players, new threats, foes, and plenty of dinosaurs. Details the different regions of the living land, and plot hooks and events from the first year of the Possibility Wars. So, if you are not familiar with Torg Eternity, or actually the original Torg from West End Games, in essence, it's kind of a science fiction game, and what it's about is these villains, these villainous High Lords, invade the Earth, and each of these invaders rule these different cosms, and these different cosms are all kind of a different genre, right? So you've got the Nile Empire, which is kind of an Egyptian 1930s pulp hero, weird technology kind of setting. You've got the Living Land, which is kind of a prehistoric yet very spiritual kind of cosm. You've got the Cyber Pope, Cyber Papacy, which is kind of a cyberpunk sort of a what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, like kind of a cyberpunkish dystopia almost. Anyway, so there's all these various different cosms, and what happens as they invade the Earth, the various different areas that these High Lords invade, our reality gets warped. So our reality gets warped to those cosms. But the Storm Knights were the big heroes. Those are the player characters. They're able to actually kind of twist reality themselves. So they're able to go into these cosms and not necessarily be as affected by these changes, this dark energy that makes these changes to our reality doesn't really affect them. It can, it especially can affect equipment and gear and things like that. So the source book starts off, it's pretty much talking about, okay, so this is what's happened in this first year the possibility wars. So it talks about what's going on, how have we responded, what's going on in various. This is all just living land stuff, though. So what's going on in the various different areas? So Canada, Cuba, Guatemala, Mexico. Talking about the U.S. Now, there are areas of the United States that are still the U.S. There are areas that are actually in the midst of the invasion that have still held out because there are different, very, very important items that historically, they're like storing energy of America, right? So, like the Liberty Bell is one. So, very, very historical objects that mean a lot to Americans. So, just like in New York, there's the area around the Statue of Liberty, right? So, anyway, so talking about what's going on. What also happens with people who are in the living land when the invasion took place, they transformed. So, not necessarily just becoming more primitive, but they actually have physically transformed to be more like prehistorical human beings. So, talking about the major timeline events. Now we're talking about the Storm Knights. There are new perks. You can have Storm Knights that are from the living land. So you can actually have Storm Knights who have been transformed. You can have Stone Knights who are the Edinos, which are the lizard people who are the main enemies. Although some don't necessarily agree with the Baraka, the big bad. So they actually help humans. So this is what the Edina look like. So we're looking at the different new perks that are available for the player characters and NPCs as well. So then we get into miracles. Now this was something that I was impressed by. I was actually happy to see the miracles. So because this is like a prehistoric setting, it's very spiritual. So I mean, the actual societal tech level is low. So there's these various different levels of the cosmos. So we've got like magic, we've got spirituality, we've got technology, we have social. So, for an example, in the living land, most of the people who have been transformed and affected by the living land in all these various cities and that no longer comprehend like civilization. They can't imagine like government. They can't imagine like different houses of Congress. What they can identify with are things like the tribe, or whoever's the strongest gets to be the leader. So with the miracles, we not only have various different miracles and they're kind of like spells, various different miracles that not only the Edinos and the followers of the living land's main religion can utilize. There's miracles here for other factions as well, because there are various different factions competing in the living land. It's not just the humans, the Storm Knights, the Delphi Council battling the Edinos. There's various different factions. Some are within the Edinos themselves. Some are human. It's pretty wild, pretty cool. So there are about 20 of these. And like I said, they're almost along the lines of spells like Cure Poison, Earthquake, Flame Aura. But then we get into gear. So one of the things that you got to keep in mind in Living Land is that modern technology will not work. It will break apart. It will disintegrate. It will rust at a tremendously advanced rate. Just like when someone dies, their body decomposes very quickly, much more quickly than it would in the normal world. So, talking about some of the different gear, A lot of this gear is actually specific to the living land, so it's things that are made from natural elements. So we'll see, like here, we're talking about melee weapons like the bone forged clubs and spears, bone razor, stone club, claw blade, two-handed stone club, bows, spears. Then we get beasts and vehicles. We get a few more dinosaurs. Now, one thing I do want to point out: the dinosaurs that are in the living land are not necessarily our history's dinosaurs. They're a bit different because the reality is they're not from Earth. They're not from Earth. They're from the Adino's own cosm. So this is the stuff that we've got for the player characters to take a peek at. There's also a section on poisons as well. So now we get into the Game Master section. Now we start getting into the war zones. I got to admit, it's kind of a bummer. The Chicago area has actually been overtaken. Boo. But Detroit hasn't? It's like, really? Come on. Who involved in this game is from Detroit or has family in Detroit or something? Because, no way. So what was holding back the change in Detroit? Was it the Motown Museum? Was it General Motors? What? Come on, I tell you. Anyway, so we talk about the Gulf Coast. I'm just kidding. City of Gold. So in California area, there's like a cult that's kind of risen up. That's what I was talking about, the various different factions that are out there. They're kind of cool. So then we got the Midwest. See there's Detroit. There, oh yeah, Detroit's fine. Yeah. All right. Chicago. Oh no, Chicago's been. Milwaukee isn't even. It's like, come on. It even says here the Grand City of Chicago is almost unrecognizable. Boo. Okay, Ozarks in Mississippi. Jeez, I need a sip here. So one thing to also point out is in Canada, there's something unusual going on that I will not spoil. But if you were someone who actually is familiar with the original Torg from West End Games, which came out, let's say, I think it was mid-90s that came out, early 90s maybe. That was a storyline as well. One other thing that I do want to mention as far as here we go, when we talk about magic, social, spirit, tech. That's the axioms is what I meant to say. These are the various different levels. So, spirit level is really high for these miracles, whereas magic, like traditional spells, almost impossible. The social level is a 7. Like I said, the most people can kind of wrap their heads around are, the tribe, the family. Tech level is even lower than the social. So it kind of explains each of these. Says magic is entirely alien to the living land. The use of magic, including magical items in the cosm, causes a contradiction. So what happens with the contradictions is you have to roll to see if your item or whatever you're happening to, like casting a spell or something like that, if it stays the way it is, or is it actually warped? Does it change? Like, so for an example, if you were a soldier who was in Detroit, right, which were the cosm has not invaded into yet, has not changed, and you had a rifle and you went into the living land, that rifle could possibly turn into a bow, right? So that's what they talk about, like the contradiction to the axioms. Anyway, so I was going to say, one of the things I thought was pretty cool is, and I'll be the first to point out, and we're at it right now, I am not super familiar with, as it slides down and the little box is popping out, I am not super familiar with the original Torg, but I have a working knowledge, I guess I'll say, of that. But it got to the point where like the Living Land and Baraka was kind of almost like comedic relief. Wasn't really taking all that seriously anymore. He was kind of like a bumbler and that. Although the Living Land started off at being pretty badass, eventually over the years, as the whole meta plot unfolded, the Living Land became more of a kind of a toss away. So one thing that I think is pretty cool is the source book makes the dinos pretty badass. they're not uh, they're not to be taken lightly. So that kind of talks about as far as the the dinos and Baraka, what his relationship is with the other high lords, different policies. The stellae are how the dinos actually will kind of advance the cosm. So one of the things that a lot of times the Storm Knights might be tasked with doing on a mission is destroying a stele, so that you can try to free areas that are already taken over. But the thing is, there's a lot more involved than just that, and it's part of it is like just the story of the Storm Knights' adventures and their tales that pass by word of mouth and things like that to bring hope back to that area. So we got a history of the Adinos themselves and the people. But the thing is that the Adinos have conquered so many other cosms that in the Living Land you can have these just mysterious things appear. So you could have, like a dungeon pop up, or you could have a alien spaceship, or there's a few adventures where you'll run across something that really doesn't belong on Earth and does not belong in this cosm, but it's there because it's almost like a shadow of something from the past. So kind of cool. Then we get into the Delphi Council, how they are handling the Living Land, how they what kind of missions that they're running. We get some personalities from the Delphi Council. Delphi Council is not necessarily all good guys, so it's something to kind of keep in mind. They are trying to battle the various different High Lords in that, but certain members of the Delphi Council probably have their own agendas. So it's something to keep in mind. So it talks about some of the bases, different operations that are currently going on, using them and incorporating them into your game. And then we start talking about various different themes and tropes for adventures that take place in the Living Land. There is not an actual adventure in this source book. There is the God Box, which is a separate long-form campaign, which unfortunately I did not get to review. Don't have a copy of it to review. I was really looking forward to that because it addresses kind of my major knock up to this point about Torg Eternity. But there's like Lost Worlds Generator. This is what I'm talking about, the Lost Worlds, where it's places that were conquered by the Adinos that will just kind of pop up out of nowhere. There is also an underground kind of hollow earth that is introduced. It's not really it's not really covered in depth in the source book here. I'm assuming it's probably going to get its own source book, but I do believe that does have a bit to play, a part to play in the God Box campaign. So, flipping on through the last few pages here. Then we get the Gospog, which really kind of, they're very bizarre. They're kind of scary. It gives you a nice kind of horror vibe to just about all the cosms, because it's one thing that's actually shared across all the cosms, are these Gospog or Ghostbog. And they're actually, there'll be humans that are actually implanted with this seed. and they get, there's different plantings, and the different plantings make them, stronger. So the younger plantings are weaker. Now, one thing that I was kind of surprised, I will actually hold this up. Let's angle this so you can get a better look at the artwork. They're all plant related, and I was a little surprised to see that. I thought that maybe the different plantings would actually have kind of different vibe to them a little bit. These are pretty tough though. These are pretty tough baddies. They're You kind of look at them like zombies, but they're really not zombies because they're intelligent. But they are led by, they're not, just left on their own to their own devices. So then we get into the dinosaurs. Like I said, these dinosaurs do kind of, they're a little bit different than our own dinosaurs. Now, granted, we have like the Brontosaurus. So, but like I said, these dinosaurs aren't supposed to necessarily be our own Earth dinosaurs because they actually have come with the dinos as part of the invasion. Then you got undead dinosaurs. Yeah, it's even better, right? Which is this is part of the goings on up in the Canadian wilderness, and we get some examples of the dinos, cryptids, humans. Oh, here we go. These are the weird cult members right there. Cartel soldier. And of course, because this is like a prehistoric setting, the plant life is pretty aggressive. So then we get a variety of eternity shards. Now, that's what I was talking about, that where these kind of help keep these cosms at bay. So we've got Liberty Bell, the Feather Shield, the Forever Totem, and we've got I can't even pronounce that. Lamaliche's necklace. I know it's in Mexico. We got Lost Treasures. So these are some of the things that you could run across that pop up that don't belong either on Earth or in that cosm. So that is all 144 pages of the Torg Eternity Living Land sourcebook. So I am actually going to sum this up, and then we're going to take a look at the Delphi Missions. So what do I think of the Torg Eternity sourcebook for the Living Land? I really like it. I think it's really well done. I think one of the reasons why it's so well done is because it had one author. You didn't have a lot of various different cooks in the kitchen all messing with the soup. So this is Ross Watson's his vision for the Living Land. Of course, there's plenty of stuff from the original edition that used for inspiration. So I really, really like it. Do you need to have it to play Torg Eternity? No. All you need is the core book. This gives you plenty of background material to really kind of get going on your adventures, kind of inspire your game master as well. On a scale of 1 to 10, I actually give this a 9.1. So really, really well done. And I personally really dig the Torg Eternity setting. And Torg in general, even like I said, I'm not super familiar with the original game, but I do have a working knowledge of it. So now let's take a look at the Delphi missions for the Living Land. Let's go back on over to this camera here. Pop this back up. So let's flip this on over. So it says, the Delphi Council needs you. Delphi Missions, The Living Land, is part of a series of adventures designed to enhance any Torg Eternity campaign. Each of the 11 adventures inside is suitable for an evening of play, be dropped into an existing story or played on its own. These dangerous missions add opportunities and complications to the Storm Knights' lives. This product contains adventures for Alpha Clearance Storm Knights written by a host of returning Torg icons including, yes, I already went through those. Inside, you'll find 11 adventures, all set within different parts of the living land. Great for a one-night fill-in or to extend an act that ends too early. New foes to battle and allies to win. As I mentioned, pick this up. It is $24.99. It's 82 pages. And of course, as with the source book, the quality of the book's really nice. Nicely done. It was funny. On Monday's show, I was taking a look at Coriolis Emissary Lost. And the subject of Wrath and Glory from Ulisses North America came up, and one of the commenters in chat had said that they were really surprised at the paper stock for Wrath and Glory. And I agreed. I was like, yeah, I was a little surprised. It was a little thinner than what I'm used to seeing from Ulisses North America products, because they're printed up over in Europe by Ulysses Spiel, who is really well known for the quality of their books. Thankfully, I can tell you the paper stock on this is pretty much what I'm used to seeing. Okay, so let's jump in here now. I should point out, got to keep in mind that if you're a player, see you later. See you tomorrow. Because I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about each of the adventures, but you are going to see stuff that is going to be a spoiler for you. All right, so the first adventure, I thought it was okay. It's essentially the Storm Knights are trying to get their hands on this oil rig and bring this oil rig in. I guess, I'm sure a lot of people don't realize that oil rigs can be moved. I mean, I don't know. I think I knew that. But, yeah, I'm sure a lot of people don't realize that oil rigs can be moved. So that is pretty much the whole premise of this adventure. It's decent. Decent. I would say that you could spend an evening playing this adventure. Now, what I have to point out is I'm a bit disappointed in the Delphi missions, and it's more along the lines of it's probably because I didn't get a chance to see the God Box. Because up until this point, the adventure releases for Torg Eternity have been all these little, like, one-shots. Maybe it'd take you 2-3 hours to play through the adventure. And the mention is always like, oh, you can drop it into your own campaigns and things like that. Well, the problem is, and as much as I'm sure there are a lot of gamers out there, a lot of role-playing gamers and game masters out there who don't want to admit this, the vast majority of game masters out there do not come up with their own stuff. A great majority of game masters out there need a published product to at least get the juices flowing. I'm not saying that they just, they can only run published adventures and modules and campaigns and things like that. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is, a lot of times, even myself, there are a lot of Call of Cthulhu adventures that I ran, campaigns I ran, that I needed some published material to kind of get me going. Now, of course, obviously, my Masks of Nyarlathotep is nothing like what was published back in the day, or the new edition that's out now. But I still needed a lot of some of that impetus to get me going. So that's kind of my knock right now as far as with Torg Eternity, because what Torg was well known for was the big overarching meta plot, and unfortunately, it was part of its undoing. It was trying to keep up with all this, just continually changing and have a storyline that's just all across, all the cosms and things like that. Plus, the player characters in original Torg kind of took a back seat to the non-player characters who were like the big heroes. Like when we're looking through the artwork here, we see there's certain characters we'll see repeated. Like there's this guy with the mask. There's this he's like a pulp hero from the Nile Empire. We'll see different artwork with him. Ah, Flaming Huron. Hey, Jeff, glad to see I was able to catch one of your streams live, even though you're closer to the end. Yeah, I am. Well, I still got a little bit of time. I just finished up reviewing the Living Land sourcebook for Torg, which I really like. And by the way, thanks for coming in. Thanks for stopping by, Flaming Huron. Relax, kick back. So I'm on the second adventure. So really, in my opinion, the knock I've got, which in some ways is kind of a major knock right now with Torg Eternity, is all the adventures outside of the God Box, which, like I said, I have not had a chance to see, are all just these little bite-sized adventures that have absolutely nothing that ties them together whatsoever. I mean, a lot of times, I'll use a great example. If I use Cubicle 7 Entertainment, right? So if we take a look at their One Ring, or you want 5th edition, or open game license, Adventures in Middle Earth, they'll come out with an adventure product, and it might have, let's say, 6 adventures in it. Now, those adventures can all be used standalone, but those adventures can also be tied together as a campaign, sometimes spanning years of game time. That has not been the case with Torg Eternity so far. We got the Seattle Underground. I did not find this to be all that exciting an adventure. Meh. I mean, I would run it, I guess, but also I noticed another thing I should point out, as far as with both the Living Land sourcebook as well as the Delphi Missions, the artwork is fine. I didn't see anything that's really super, and this is kind of something I've seen also with Torg Eternity. I don't run across a lot of artwork that's like really, wow, inspirational. Wow, that got my juices flowing. That's really cool. Just like, okay, for an example, right? So sitting around the campfire, I don't know, is that getting you excited to play? Not me. So I don't know. I mean, but then here we got the Adinos with the bow. That's fine. That's a good piece of art. All right, so the Battle of Philadelphia is actually pretty good. I like the Battle of Philadelphia. Kind of interesting. You got the humans and the Adinos fighting it out, because Philadelphia is still free, still open area. But once again, pretty short here. You're looking at just a few pages, and that's it. Finding Champ, yeah, it was all right. It's so you're trying to find this thing. I don't know. Is it a cryptid? Is it a dinosaur? You don't know. Trying to find Champ. It kind of has a little bit of a vibe where it's is it Loch Ness Monster you're trying to track down? Changing Storm. Meh. So didn't find. Yeah, it was all right. Like I said, I don't want to be giving away various different. I don't want to give spoilers out. So Deeper Impact, I thought that this was okay. I thought this was kind of cool. Little bit of exploration to it, a little like treasure hunting almost. Earth's a Dinosaur. Hey, at least this takes place in the Field Museum in Chicago. Although I have to admit, reading this, I kind of had the impression that the person who wrote this, Ron Lundeen, probably is not really familiar with the museums in the Chicago area. But yeah, this was actually kind of cool. And Sue the T-Rex, come on. Who, amazingly enough, okay, this is a weird side item, because I'm always talking about Lil Bub's Big Fun. There's a episode of Lil Bub had this little show that, amazingly enough, you had like Michelle Obama and like Whoopi Goldberg and stuff like that on. But he goes to the Field Museum in Chicago and he falls in love with Sue the T-Rex. So I thought that was kind of funny. All right, back to the book. So we got going upriver. This left me kind of cold. Not, once again, not that exciting. Like I said, how much action can you pack into just a few pages? When and I, granted, yes, if it was like an old school RPG module, yeah, just a few pages, you can pack a lot of stuff in. But of course, you're not looking at print font that big. All right, moving right along. We only got a few adventures left. First to a dying tree. I thought this was kind of cool. I thought this was all right. I like once again, there's cult involvement here. So I kind of like that. I like when we've got different factions that aren't just the humans and the Edinos. Barak Kaz Edinos. First walk takes place in Oregon. This is a little bit different. This brings in some of the religious aspects to the Edinos, because the Edinos actually there's like an offshoot of them who like worship. Well, I guess I don't want to say worship death, but they're trying to kind of cheat death, and they're interested in dead things, which most Edinos don't want to have anything to do with. So, this is actually the longest adventure that's in the book as well. I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was a little different, so I did like it. All right, so that is it for the Delphi missions for the Living Land for Torg Eternity. So, what do I think of the Delphi missions? I think that the Delphi missions are kind of hit or miss. Some I thought were just like, I wouldn't run it. I mean, but I think, like I said, part of the problem that I've encountered, because I have not seen the God Box, is that there's no cohesion between any of the adventures that are out for Living Land as far as Delphi missions, or Delphi missions for day one Delphi missions. So as far as like adventure releases that are from Ulisses North America, now granted, we'll have another one for Nile Empire, because that was the recent Kickstarter. But the adventure releases for Torg Eternity so far have been a bunch of completely unrelated adventures in day one, completely unconnected adventures again in Delphi missions for Living Land, and then Godbox. So, which is supposed to be a campaign, which is what I'd have to reach out and see maybe about, even if I get to check out a PDF of it or whatever. But honestly, I mean, Delphi missions is fine. It's not great. I think about half the adventures I thought were, yeah, this is pretty good. The other half were sort of like, nah, not really. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I can really only give the Delphi missions for Living Land a 6.8 out of 10. Far lower than the source book itself. But once again, it's because you've got all these different voices all throwing out these little adventures that, for the most part, except for the last one you could probably stretch out over a couple of sessions, are just kind of one and dones. And in my opinion, these Delphi mission books, yes, I understand day one was to get people like into the new system. Hey, this is to introduce you to the game system and Torg Eternity as a whole. I think the Delphi missions, if they're going to be Delphi missions in every cosm here on out, I think it's almost kind of going to do a disservice to the system as a whole. Because I would rather see that kind of effort put into, a 4-part adventure, a big long adventure like the God Box, as opposed to these little bite-sized adventures that, I got to be honest, most game masters don't run. Most game masters are not going to sit there and run a bunch of different completely unconnected adventures with their group as far as to do a campaign. At least game masters that I'm aware of, and I certainly don't. I like to have something tying adventures together. Now, that's not to say that I wouldn't take, like, swords and wizardry adventure and then follow it up with another swords and wizardry adventure and tie them together as a campaign, even though they don't have anything to do with each other, of course. But the thing is, what I mainly mean is I don't know game masters who are just like, okay, this one game session is this, then we're doing another adventure here, now we got a completely different adventure here. It's just, it's not that's not my style. And I don't think that's a style for a lot of gamers either. All right, so in the end, a very nice 9.1 for the Living Land sourcebook and just an okay 6.8 for the Delphi Missions book for the Living Land. All right, so that's it for today's show. On tomorrow's show, as I mentioned, I will be reviewing The Thing, Infection at Outpost 31 from USAopoly, as well as Bondo Ray Gun. So, when you are not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in gaming news, reviews, comics, movies, TV. Oh, by now you know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Be sure to spread the word too. Tell your friends about the Gaming Gang as well as the Daily Dope. Best way to get more people checking it out is just, tell a friend. All right, so Fleming Huron, thanks for popping in, even though you just popped in towards the end. I always appreciate people stopping by and saying hello in chat. I will be back tomorrow. It'll be Friday. So enjoy the rest of your Thursday night. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Thanks again for watching The Daily Dope, presented by The Gaming Gang. If you like this episode, be sure to give it a quick thumbs up. And if you dig the channel, please subscribe. If you'd like to check out our previous episode, click right here. And if you want to check out a somewhat randomly selected episode, give a click right down here. It'll be like opening a box of Cracker Jacks. You just don't know what you'll get. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'm Jeff McAleer.